open seating over here. Y'all hear me okay? All the way from the back? Y'all good? Okay, cool. Well, good evening, everyone. Like they said, my name is Andrea. I'm one of your campus pastors here. Someone asked me earlier how many times I've been to fall retreat. This is my, the Getaway. This is my 7th retreat here, so it's kind of crazy. Yeah, but very excited. I have been so just encouraged by the way that I've seen you guys just making friends today. There's so many new faces here, and I'm encouraged that each of you would make the decision to come to the Getaway. Especially if this is your first time, I want to welcome you and just say thank you for pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. I know today has been a lot of socializing, and if you're tired, that's okay. We just have the neon party to look forward to, and then tomorrow will be great. You can get back home. But I hope that you guys have had a great experience so far. I'm sure that you've been able to make some great friendships. So yes, like they said earlier, I'm going to be talking about branching out. I'm very passionate about this because God changed my life through people who branched out to me. So before I talk about, what is branching out, what does that mean? I want to give you a little bit of context about me. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. Both of my parents were Mexican immigrants who came here when they were teenagers, and so their first language was Spanish. I was born along with my brother, and we were born and raised there in San Antonio. We lived in a pretty lower middle class family, and so our house was a 1-bedroom house that had 1 bathroom, but we turned our kitchen, our dining room and our living room into bedrooms. We makeshifted it to fit all of us there. And so I give you guys a little context so that you know where I'm coming from when I tell you about how difficult it was to branch out and come to college where so many people were different from me, had different experiences. So I grew up going to an all-girls middle school and high school charter school. It was kind of weird. But it was great because it was one of the first times that anyone in my family got any type of higher education. So I ended up coming to UTD because of going to that school. They really pushed me and encouraged me to pursue academics. And I rode the bus to school every day. Anyone else? Hey! It was so fun. But there was times that, the middle schoolers I rode the bus with would make fun of us. Charter school girls who wore our Catholic style uniforms. It was weird. So then I ended up coming to UTD. I really wanted to go to UT Austin. Anyone else? Yeah. Hey! And then I got capped and I didn't get in. The usual story. I ended up here, UT not being my first choice, yada, yada, yada. But God really changed my life through being a part of UTD's campus. I think he really brought me here because he knew that this was the place that I was going to find him. So when I first moved in, I moved into Helix Hall. Back then it was Southwest. Anyone else? Hey! I moved into Southwest or Helix, and it was such a crazy experience because my parents had never gone to college. And they didn't know anything really about how that was. I didn't have anyone to guide me through that. And so it was strange moving away from home and having to navigate all of these changes, being away from home, being away from your parents, being away from the support system that you knew. And so if that's your story, I hope that today can encourage you because God really met me while I was there. So both of my roommates that year were white. And I had just this prejudice against white people or people that were not Hispanic because I just couldn't find a way to relate to them. When they would talk to me, they would talk about doing things that I had never done before. If they were wealthier, they would talk about vacations that they had been on, that I had never had the experience of going or doing things like that because my parents they didn't have documentation at the time. And so it was just very hard to find people that were similar to me and that I could relate to. And at the time, without really having a relationship with Jesus, I couldn't really see the value in meeting people and befriending people that were different from me. I only saw the differences between me and another person, and that really stopped me from pursuing a deeper relationship with them. So that was my mentality coming in. My very first class, I sat next to a girl named Jessica Butcher. And she, if you know, she hasn't been here long enough. Jessica Butcher, she was from a mixed couple. She was mixed. And she had just like these stories about her family that I had never heard anyone experience something like that. She would ask me questions about myself. She had a car, and so she would offer me to take me to the grocery store, or she would take me down to downtown to take the bus to go home. And she kept inviting me every single week, every single class that we had together to come to any Focus event, because she had gotten plugged in immediately, like when she moved in. And I think I went to one core and one, at the time, FNF, now the Grove. And I was so overwhelmed by the amount of people there that I was like, I'm never coming back here. This is too much. And everyone was just so different. Again, I had that lens of everyone being so different. I want to find people that are like me, that check the boxes for what I'm looking for. And that led to very little connection with people. But Jessica kept inviting me, and after being chased down, eventually the second year I got involved. So she was one person that reached out to me and really showed me the love and care of Jesus. The second person was this girl named Susie Getaway. Anyone? Sienna, you know her? No. Well, her name was Susie. We would go to church together. I would carpool with this group of people that were in Focus, and would go to church. And after church, we would all hang out and have dinner, because we would do it on Saturdays. And one of the nights in particular, Susie turned to me. We were eating dinner on the couch, and she was like, Andrea, tell me about yourself, and tell me, where's your family from? Started asking all these questions about my life, and I hadn't experienced that yet, when someone gives you their full attention and desires to know you. And it was just very eye-opening and heart-changing for me to have someone that really cared, that I barely knew, but that cared enough about some random stranger to ask them and invite them into their lives. So, I'm very excited to share with you guys about branching out, because God is good, and He has placed us all in this community as people who are different, people who are similar, people from all different kinds of spaces, because He wants us to practice His love together. And so I hope that as you go through this evening, through your first year, second year, whatever year this is of following Jesus, that you can grow to love your neighbor as yourself, as He says. So, let me find myself in my notes. And so that first year of, God building this relationship with me, I chose after that to try out Focus again my sophomore year, because I had given it a very little chance, and He had met me with people that really cared for me. So I was like, okay, maybe Focus is worth it. Maybe there are some people that can show me a love of Jesus here. So I ended up coming back, and that year I was like, okay, I'm already in a core. I guess I'll go and talk to people. I would go to all of the Friday night things, and eventually I found myself walking around campus and seeing people that I knew and waving at them, and going to the SU and having lunch with people that I knew. And little by little, God started to form in me this idea that UTD could be a second home for me. And so branching out really is important, because it creates just a home for us together on campus, a place where you can belong. So, yes. I'm sorry. Okay, so why did I spend so much time on this? Because I want you guys to have a vision for yourself of what your time at UTD could look like if you decide to branch out to others. A verse that came to mind while I was writing this is in John 13:34-35. If y'all are taking notes, you can write that down. It says, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." As disciples of Jesus, He has commanded us to love one another. However, we can't fulfill this command if we don't know one another. In writing this sermon, it was kind of hard to know which side to tackle it from because so many of us come from different mindsets and perspectives. So here are a few maybe examples of where you might be at. Maybe you're this person. Bruh. Whatever. Who's this random girl telling me I need to meet new people? There's already a push for me to come to the Getaway, and I just want to go home and be as snug as a bug and see you guys later. Leave all that talking to those extroverts. Or maybe you're this person. Oh my gosh, talking to a stranger sounds so awkward. What if they don't like me? What if I don't have anything in common? What if they think I'm annoying or weird? What if it's like an awkward silence and they don't say anything back? How do I even talk to someone? I'm really scared. Maybe that's you. Maybe you're this person. Dude, I've got so many friends and I'm looking to make some more. I can't wait to be here and talk to all these people. And if I ran for homecoming president, whatever homecoming king, I would win. Maybe you're this person, and let's be honest, this can be my internal monologue sometimes. Nobody here understands me. I'm just too complicated. What's even the point to all this? I'm going to graduate in a few years anyway, and nobody's going to remember me. Why even try? Maybe you're this person. I'm secure in the amount of friendships that I have, and I don't really feel like I need to go and meet new people. I can just stick to my own core because they're the people I want to spend time with. So I could go on and on listing all these examples, but hopefully one of those speaks to you a little bit. And I think that God has something to say to all of us tonight. And although the goal for my sermon is to get you guys to branch out, the main point I want to hit tonight is there's room in your heart for one more. There's room in your heart for one more. In a couple of the Gospels, Jesus tells this parable of the lost sheep. If you want to write down the reference, it's in Matthew 18, 12 through 14. And I'm going to read it. He says, "What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 on the hills and go to look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he is happier about the one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any one of these little ones should perish." So for you exegeters, I know y'all are like, well, this scripture isn't about, going out for the one, whatever. This is talking about the Pharisees, yada, yada, yada. And they're like judging Jesus for pursuing the sinners. But for the sake of our time together, I want to focus on the fact that Jesus would leave the 99 to go and find the one. Although he already had enough sheep that were enough, he wanted the one, and so he went out of his way to find it. He had room in his heart for one more. So as Christians, we're called to imitate Jesus, which means that we also are to have eyes to see all the sheep out there and to find the 91 that isn't searching for a community, for love. So whether or not you consider yourself an extrovert or an introvert or in need of friends or not, I want to invite you to make room in your heart for one more. And really a lot of this comes from this heart posture. You can be a very chatty person and extroverted and talk to everyone that you want to, or you can not be that person and stick to yourself. But all of this comes from a deeper within posture of wanting to love people. You can't change your behavior if your heart isn't there. So how does this play out in our community? Well, I thought you'd never ask. One way is to befriend people that are different from you. Like I mentioned in my story, when I first came to UTD, I didn't really feel like I could relate to anyone because I had made up these check boxes of things that people had to check off to be my friend. And although I didn't realize it then, I was really closing the doors to a bunch of things that God could have done for me that year. ways that he could have really transformed my heart for him 1 year earlier. Over time, I got to know the heart of Jesus through studying FOJ and meeting people, that I began to embrace things that make people different from me. Instead of only thinking of how I felt in the conversation, I started to think more about how they felt and making them feel comfortable around me. Making the other person feel known and seen by me. By befriending people who were different from me, God grew in me an even greater love for him and his creativity for how he codes different people. So I wanted to share about a few of the friends that I've befriended that are different from me, who God has really used to transform my life. One of them is our very own Layla. Where is she? Oh, there she is! Yeah, Layla and I met a few years ago now. And 3 years. She has really been someone who has pushed me out of my comfort zone because, as y'all know, she's very expressive. And she has been someone that I can just share my emotions with freely. And that has changed me in the ways that I also want to be an emotional support for someone. She pushes me, and even though it's uncomfortable, it's good. And I'm very grateful for her to be someone that can walk alongside me with Jesus. Another person is Lindsay. She's not here. She worked at UTD for several years. Now she's at TCU, go Frogs. But for some of you who know her, you know that she's also a very peppy person. And she grew up in a very wealthy white family, which was vastly different from my background. One time I went to her house and I was like, oh my gosh, these are like the houses my mom used to clean when I was growing up. And I still feel that way sometimes when I visit wealthy homes. I'm like, I can't believe that now I'm a guest in these homes. But Lindsay has been such a blessing to me. She, even though grew up with all this wealth that I thought would make her a certain way, like exclusive and judgy, she has Jesus within her and showed me what it meant to love Jesus more. She warmed up to me, has shared so openly about her life, and has invited me into some of her wealth, which has been interesting for me. Her parents have like a house in Colorado, and she invited all of our women's staff at UTD 1 year to go with her and to enjoy this house together and spend time together. I think this was 2 summers ago. We went to California as a women's trip. Again, I've never really traveled. I didn't travel much, but you know, God does things. And we were able to go sailing, which I was like, never in my life have I been sailing before. And recently, this is a random one, but Kylie, her dad has like a boat, and so we went this past summer, like on their like boat on the water, and we went tubing, which I was like, what? So yeah, God really just does surprise you with the people that he brings into your life. And even though those are, you know, a little material blessings, there really are ways that you can connect deeper with people. One of the students that has changed my life is Portia. Where's she at? Hey! Yeah, Portia, I met her freshman year. I was already on staff, I think. But she grew up in a Filipino family. She immigrated here from the Philippines. I never met a Filipino friend before. And just being a part of her walk with God, she has invited me to her house. I stayed with her parents, and yeah, it's just been sweet getting to build a friendship with someone who's different from you, but that you have this foundation in Jesus, where really that's all you need to have in common. So those are just a few examples, and through those things, God has transformed me, and has transformed the person that I befriended. So Jesus had a point when he made friends with his disciples. He called them his disciples because he knew that friendship was a way that was going to change their hearts. So in the NLT translation, Philippians 2, 3-4 says, "Don't be selfish. NLT. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interests, but take an interest in others too. One of my big encouragements to you is to be inquisitive about others. Ask God to spark curiosity in your heart. It is a skill to be learned. And I think with all of this like social media and consumption of things, we just have lost some of our curiosity for people. Don't be afraid to ask questions and really get to know someone. And when they answer a question, show that you're engaged. Sometimes like fish eyes when someone asks me, I'm like, are you even listening to me? One of my favorite things is to learn about someone is their interests. It's so neat getting to see people's faces light up with the things that they enjoy doing. I encourage you to take an interest in people and ask them what makes them them. And stop trying to think so much of yourselves, instead to those around you, making them feel important and seen. Because God will change your heart through that. He won't change your heart if you just think about yourself. It can be a very beautiful thing. Just a random example. If you know me, you know I love the USPS. Anyone? I always have to shout them out. I love it. But Kylie, where's she? Oh, Kylie back there. I told her once that I really enjoyed like collecting postcards. And so now every time she goes on a vacation or somewhere, she sends me a postcard. And even though that's small, it really does show me that like she cares about me and took just this random thing that was so mundane and ordinary to show me God's love. So you can also, whenever you're meeting someone and tell you about their interests, ask them about it and then ask them to invite you into that thing. So if they tell you that they really enjoy listening to this certain genre of music, ask them about it. Who are your favorite artists within that? Let me listen to a song by them right now. Sometimes I do that. It's funny. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm vibing with this. And other times I'm like, I don't know, man. But I like it, you know? It makes you you. A great way of doing this in our community is brown bag. I love brown bag. They're all so unique, and I learned so much about the person that I'm doing a brown bag with. Last year, I had a brown bag with Xander. Hey, we met up in the Comic Cafe, which some people don't know what that is. It's a space between Starbucks and Firehouse Subs. That used to be a Comic Cafe. But yeah, we met up there, and he had this bracelet that had like a Bible verse on it. And sometimes when I'm like, what are we even talking about? I'm going to just point out random things about the person and ask him about it. I was like, Xander, what's that? And he's like, oh, it's a memory verse that, my church has been trying to emphasize in their sermons. I'm like, okay, let's look it up. Let's memorize it together. And we did that for like 5 minutes, and it was so fun. And I also learned that he likes country music. And so I was like, okay, where are some of the artists? Give me some songs. And he's like, oh, what kind of songs do you like? I'm like, I don't know, I like the sad ones. And he's like, okay, here's the one. And I was like, okay. So, I also you get to meet people, you get to know what they like and stuff. I also had a brown bag with a student once named Nikita, and it was his freshman year, his very first brown bag. And he told me that he enjoyed making like short films in high school. So I was like, okay, let's watch one together. And so he showed me one of his, and I still bring it up from time to time. I'm like, hey, Nikita, remember that short video? And he's like, why do you remember that? I'm like, it's interesting. It's what makes you you. I recently met up with this girl named Kimberly, and she told me that she has a ranch out in Rockwell. And I was like, can I come over? And she was like, yeah. And so I'll be planning that sometime soon. So yeah, it just really is so sweet getting to figure out what people are into and inviting yourself into their lives. It changes you. So if someone tells you that they enjoy playing a certain game, ask them to show you how to play it. If they, like I said, enjoy listening to certain genre or artists, ask them about it. If they enjoy a certain type of food, you guys can look up together a place that y'all can go and eat that food together, or if it's a restaurant, go together. If they're in a club, like an orchestra or a band or in a sport, you can also plan ways for you to go and support them. It's one of my favorite things to do. And bring people along with you. It really can be so fun. So the next time that the brown bag comes down your row at the Grove, give it a second thought before signing up. To sign up. And then little by little, you'll start to know more and more people in our community and feel even more a part of what God is doing here. In doing so, you'll also be able to be someone who can connect people with other people. I love getting to know others and figuring out their niche interests and hobbies so that when I meet someone else that mentions that, I'm like, oh, I know someone who does that. And I can introduce them to and already have just this commonality that they can talk about. And it can also be helpful if someone's struggling in a class or for a test, studying for a test, that you know someone who's taken that class or whatever, connect them to, and then they can help one another. It says in Acts 2:42-47, and I think it casts a good vision for what our community could look like. It says, "They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and of prayer. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved." Another way that you can do this is in your core. Core is one of my favorite things ever because God puts these hodgepodge random people in your crew and tells you, okay, go run with it. I want to challenge each of you to invite people in your core to do things with you. Have people over for dinner, go grocery shopping together, go to each other's houses, introduce people to your families, go to sporting events together. One of my favorite memories a few years ago is from this girl who led core named Erica. She invited her core to come with her to a ranch. I love ranches. She has a ranch in Commerce, her family does, and so she invited us to go with her. And a couple of the girls had never had a carne asada, which is like a Mexican version of barbecue. And so we had dinner together with her family, and we got all muddy because we were walking through, just the land that they had. And we got to meet their pasture animals, and it was just so fun. Random and fun, and really made us all feel closer to one another because she felt that she could invite us to that, and it really was so great. So, anything that you have to offer, I'm sure your core people would be honored to be invited into. So take the freedom of being able to gather a group of people to do something together and run with that. I want to invite you to take the same mindset of making room for one more, to have eyes to see the people around you that you can invite with you. Keep an eye out for the people in your core or on the fringes of the Grove or even at the Getaway, and personally ask them to come with you to the post-Grove hangout or core hangout. One-on-one is how it's done. That's one of the things that we live by as a ministry. But yeah, people love to be personally invited to things. So, you can post things in your core group me or whatever, but personally inviting people really does make a difference. And I want to ask you to invite God's Spirit inside of you to lead you to who He might want you to love. Because it could be a fringe person. If you get to the Grove and your core isn't there yet, there's a room full of people that would love to be your friend. And this is just an aside, sometimes I feel like I introduce someone to someone and they're like, hey. I'm like, hello? Can you just ask them a question? Just be interested in one another. It really makes a difference and makes it feel homey when people are like, oh, hey, what's your name? I'm like, oh, hey, I'm Andrea. And they're like, oh, hey. Ask me a question, I think we can grow in our question asking, because I think it's one thing to be open to making new friends, but another thing about fostering friendships can be different. So We don't just want to be these surface level people who talk to one another and that's it, but that we really care and love one another and care more beyond the surface. So I want to make sure to address the idea that branching out to different people will not always be easy, because sometimes personalities don't click, as people like to say. There will certainly be things that people do or say that are not your preferred qualities in a friend. However, if we are to be a community where everyone gets to feel the warmth and love of God, then we have to look different from the rest of campus. We can't segregate to form groups or cliques of people and fool ourselves into believing that God can be glorified among the division.
That's good. Say it again.
Okay, I'll say it again. Okay, there will certainly be things that people do or say that are not your preferable qualities in a friend. However, if we are to be a community where everyone gets to feel the warmth and love of God, then we have to look different from the rest of campus. We can't segregate and form groups or cliques of people and fool ourselves into believing that God can be glorified among the division. Ask God to help you to make room in your heart to love those that are difficult for you to connect with, because embracing God and his people will change you. Worship team, y'all can come on up. In 1 John 4, it says, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. We love because he first loved us. Anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister." So God considers each of his children worthy of his crucifixion and resurrection. When Jesus died on the cross, he died for every single one of you, not just some of us. He has given each of us a blessed opportunity to be here all together in the same time and place. It is not by coincidence that you are here at UTD, in your core, in this community, and at the Getaway. He has given each of you the unique opportunity to know him and to be in connection with his people, and we cannot take that for granted. We cannot pick and choose who we want to talk to and who we don't, because God's love is too good for us to limit it. God has chosen to write a story in every single one of you, and it is only when we get to know one another that God can be glorified, and that God's name can be proclaimed on our campus. Together, we have the Spirit with us to be a light on our campus and a refuge for people to come and experience the true God. We can make spaces on campus feel like home, with hospitality to love one another, always having space for one more in your heart. For when that person that comes along who's seeking community, seeking love, and is hungry for friendship, they can come and join us. So take charge of this community. You make up focus at UTD, and praise God that he has chosen you to be a part of what he's doing here. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for allowing us to be here. Thank you for choosing us to be your people at UTD, and I pray that we always have room for one more in our hearts. Pray that you invite the Spirit to lead us where you want to lead us, and that you would help us just befriend people that are different from us, and we can truly love them with your love. That you would transform us through the connections that we make. We love you, and it's in your holy name we pray. Amen. All right. I'm going to invite up Kayla. She's going to be doing our testimony.